Well, I just been across to see old Harry Partridge in the cottage hospital. He cut his leg on a bit of old iron and that turned sceptical. I says to him, how you feeling, Harry? He says, well, he says, I'm better than what I was. He says, but I ain't as well as what I was before. I was as bad as what I am now. So you can tell he must have been pretty queer. Well, they had to give him the artificial interrogation, you know. One thing you'll see a lot of changes when he comes out, because we've had the proper water fitted in since he's been away. Council water in pipes. But I don't care for it myself. Well, there don't seem to be no strength in it. You can hardly smell it. Oh, give me a drop of my old well water every time. You can smell that all right. It was like a drop of gravy. That's why they made me fill it in. Fella come across from Luton, you know, and he took some of it away to be annihilated. He says, it's alive, this water, he says. Crawling with them, he says. I says, crawling with what? And he says, bacteriums and microphobes and minute animal organisations. I says, get away, I says. That's only a few tadpoles, I says. All through the war, we was depending on them to help us out with the meat ration. Well, he said, it might be all right for bathing, and he said, but it ain't fit to drink. The idea of bathing, oh. I've never had a bath in my life. I don't want one, not well, I sweats regular. Oh, I don't want a lot of bathing. That's why I hope I never have to go into hospital. I've been private all my life and I want to stay private. I don't want a lot of young women taking down my particulars. I told this Inspector Cater chap I'd never had a bath. He says, well, however do you get the dirt off then? I says, when it's thick enough, it falls off. Like it do a potato. Of course, it has to be dry. I could read without glasses up till about 3 years ago, you know, till I got a second-hand pair, 25 pence, case and all. Oh, I can read with them, right? They make the headlines in the paper look about 5 foot high. I keep thinking I'm going to fall over them all the time. I tried old Willie Franklin's on the other day, you know, what he got on this national health arrangement. But there ain't a patch on mine. Ah, ain't a patch on mine. Then, of course, he's cross-eyed, so I don't suppose he would. He got some wonderful false teeth out of him, though. Oh, wonderful false teeth. He can hardly shut his mouth at them. But he can't half grin now. He frightened the life out of him. No, he frightened the life out of his old woman when she first seen him in them. She ran outside and locked herself in the washhouse. Only trouble is he has to take them out to eat with. Mind you, they don't fit him too well. Sounds as if he's rattling a dice box in his mouth. Well, they fit me better than what they do him. I tried them the other night down the Rose and Crown. Well, 8 or 9 of us tried them. Ah, well, we washed them out in mild and bitter before we put them in. Ah, no need to be dirty, is there? He was trying to sell them. He wanted 50 pence for them. Old Albert Wickens bought them at the finish for his old woman. Well, you ought to know her size by this time. But that's just like old Willie, you know, selling his teeth. Ah, never could hang on to anything. Always chopping and changing about. He'd been married 5 times, 3 times intentional and twice catched. But I had a tidy good education, you know. I could read when I was 18. Only not to understand it, like. Not like that old Miss Piggott what used to play the organ. Oh, I hated the sights of her. I couldn't abide her. I reckon her dad was a big army gentleman left over from the mutinies. But she was very, very hot on the temperance. Ooh, She caught me one time. She seed my wheelbarrow stood outside the Rose and Crown. I'd been over to get some bean sticks from by the crab tree, and I stood my barrow outside the Rose and Crown, and she seen it stood there. So I sees her on the Tuesday, and she starts off at me. She says, I seed your barrow stood outside the Rose and Crown, she says. That's intemperance, she says, intemperance. Look not upon the wine when it is red, she says, because at the last it biteth like a serpent and stingeth like an adder. Proverbs 25, 31 and 32. But I said I was never inside the Rose and Crown, I never come. She said, I seed your barrow stood outside. That's intemperance, intemperance, she said. So I see it wasn't no good arguing with her finish. I touched me hat and I said good afternoon. 3 or 4 days afterwards, I left my barrow stood outside her front door all night. That had a... But they got me on telling about the Reverend Maynard the other night, you know, what used to be our vicar. Not the last vicar, nor the one before him, nor the one but the one before him. Finest vicar we ever had. Oh, you couldn't have beat him. Wonderful man. Wonderful man for marrying people. Oh, he couldn't half marry them. He used to start off by saying, marriage is a blessing to a few, a curse to many, and a great uncertainty to all. He used to frighten the bloody life out of them. They had a mass wedding there one time, 8 or 9 couples. And when it was all over, the Reverend Maynard, he catched one of these young fellas, what he'd only just married, trying to kiss one of the other chap's wives. He gave him a 4-penny one round his ear hole. He says, you dip in your own treacle, mate. finest vicar we ever had, he was. Finest vicar we ever had. Mad about cricket, that was his only trouble. Cricket mad he was. He often said over instead of amen. At one time he said he ended the second innings. But they made him a bishop at the finish, you know. So he couldn't have been too bad, could he? Bishop of Buckingham, that's what he become. But he got very, very short-sighted at the finish. Terrible bad eyes he had. They had a big confirmation service across there one time, and he confirmed 2 of the old oak knobs on the altar rail. When they told him what he'd done, he said, oh, hang these old eyes of mine. He said, I do believe I can see better at the sockets. But we're going to miss old Willie Franklin, you know. They don't grow 'em like him every day. He cut a hole in his gas mask so he could get his pipe through. And he was a dead shot, you know. He could spit on a flea. Well, he used to say, why crack 'em when you can drown 'em? He used to get up at 4:30 every morning so that he could have a couple of hours rest before he started working. He wouldn't even buy himself a bicycle for fear that'd take him somewhere where he didn't ought to be. Rare one was old Willie. They don't grow 'em like him every day. And he always had an answer, you know. You couldn't catch him out. Always had an answer. I remember when he got a job as a railway porter across at Cheddington, you know. When they'd, of course, they're at the railway station, when they'd taken all the labels and signs and that off everything in the war, so as we shouldn't know where we was. Well, first morning he was on duty, he forgot where he was. But he wasn't catched out. Oh, no, he wasn't catched out. When his first train steamed in, he hollered out, here you are, for where you're going, all you in there for here, get out. But I went, of course, to old Charlie's funeral. Of course, at Edlesborough last Friday. He slipped off middling sly, you know. I thought he might hang on till about Christmas, but it seemed he'd made up his mind. It was some new disease he died of. You don't know you got it till you're gone. They tried warm cow dung at the finish. Never done him very good. In between 2 bits of flannel, like a little poultice. I reckon that keeps the heat in if you put it in the right place. But they couldn't have put it in his right place because he never kept his heat in. I seen old Nobby at the graveside, old Nobby Clark, standing by the grave there in his old overcoat. Old Nobby, he hasn't been outdoors for about 7 years. I says, how old are you, Nobby? He says, 98. I said, hardly worthwhile going home. And he laughed. He says, I ain't going to die. He says, I knows it. Shouted it at me right across the open grave. I ain't going to die. He says, I'm going to shrivel up and blow away. I wouldn't be surprised if he do, too. They're a cunning lot, them Clarks, you know. They tries to wriggle out of everything. Well, there was a subject, of course, at Alsbury. He lived to be 109. 109 years old at his age, 109. He never died. They went into him one morning, he wasn't there. They never seed the going of him. They reckon he must have sent down for him direct.